Okay, folks. Let's do it the classic way of me just shooting a spontaneous video and you having to either watch it or, just skip the parts that are impure. So, first thing I want to talk about is intention and its relation to our experience in life. So, what I found out is it's all about intention. Well, intention is almost, if you set the right intentions, well, everything I say is still a thesis, okay? I'm still, working hard for the physical proof of everything I say and I claim. First, let me give you a very physical suggestion. That is to eat dandelion and to walk. Very solid foundation for anything, for if you want to build anything, basically. Whatever you want to build. So intention. We should let's let us how do you say that? Let's let the topic of intentions and talk about building stuff. So for me, major key to my current, well, I had a numerologist tell me that my heart's desire is to build. Okay. And this is like very strongly related to, I don't know, reprogramming my whole how do you say that, soul, if you will. Because my soul in past incarnations, I was busy tearing stuff down. And I was good at it. But in this lifetime, I obviously, well, that's what I believe and that's what I feel like I'm currently doing. I'm, reprogramming the deeper layers of my soul. Oh, this is getting very, how do you say that? I'm being quite open right now. But whatever. That's what I do. That's what I'm interested in, okay? That's my profession. That's my hobby, That's my hobby, actually. Reprogramming the soul and, wiring it to make it possible to experience deeper soul desires. So if I look at my self-image, still don't feel like I'm able to do it, honestly. If I look at my faith, oh, it's wavering a lot. My faith is, I'm struggling with my faith immensely. Obviously, I'm also debating a lot of stuff with a lot of people. Feels like I'm always busy, Well, if it comes to connections in life, I spent major part of my focus, of my intentions, is to just, be able to be with myself, experience myself, and let everything that people try to attach to me, well, this might be a victim role, but everything that people might, you know, project onto me. Yes, I feel like people are projecting onto me. That's, well, I'm also projecting onto people, of course. Um, Intention. Let's get back to the main topic, intention. So, intention also relates to the sacrifices that you make for life, if you will. So that the donations, that the things you give, you give to other people, you give to life, you give to nature, you give to Mother Earth, you give to yourself, to your body, whatever. Intention is very important. And I don't know how to explain it, but intention feels like the deal maker or deal breaker, So the intentions that I'm currently setting is, with this walk, just cleansing the body, working out my liver, doing the most natural thing as a mensch. That's just walking. And that's very basic and very, doesn't feel, epic sometimes. With all the stuff that I've been growing up with, I want to have an epic life, okay? I want to be the hero. I'll admit it. I want to be a hero. I want to slay the dragon, sorta. But honestly, I know I'm not walking the most courageous possible path. I'm not doing it. I'm walking the second, well, relates to building, right? So what I found out is building stuff, when you walk away, when you literally walk away. So we're in October right now in Germany. And I had this almost, don't let me brag, okay? But it felt like a divine inspiration. The moment where you realize, oh shit, man, I gotta do it. I gotta walk the really hard path, okay? That's what I felt like I had. And it felt like I had to walk to, a very distant country, Spain or Greece, whatever. And then I smoked a cigarillo that I bought at the gas station, heavily meddled, bullshit, basically. And I got another inspiration. And I followed that inspiration, okay? So I'm not 100% happy. Well, part of me, if you will, with what I'm doing right now, because I feel like I'm sacrificing a lot of my values for not walking the highest path. This also relates heavily to my to the relationships that I have with people and to my self-worth, okay? And it feels like a more altruistic way of living, but it also feels like remaining as I was all the time, basically. Well, I'm 32, so my body has 32 years, has been existing for 32 years, okay? And I've never really, I never really grew roots at home. Somehow, well, the deep, deep roots. I always found a way to postpone my rooting process. But I never really got away and grew any roots otherwise in another place. Okay, so I've been just well, rooted here, but not on the deepest level. And right now, it feels like I'm this digger or this miner that just chooses to dig in the mine that he's always been digging in, okay? And I found some stuff there where almost anyone would say just abandon the mine, okay? Just abandon the mine and find another mine. Find different gems. Find, the gems that you've been collecting, they're outdated. They're, whatever. And I've had a couple days ago, I simultaneously met two friends of old times. Friends that I shared, the one friend of mine, I met him when I was about 14, and this was my hip hop, wearing baggy pants, long t-shirts, playing Need for Speed Most Wanted, drinking beer, just, but a very, um, was a very pleasant phase. I was very happy because I felt very alive, living out my rebellion in a mild, semi-mild way, um, sometimes just destroying a bunch of stuff. That's what I did back then. Snatching those fire extinguishers and blowing them out on the street. Nothing really, nothing really bad. I barely hurt any people, I think. I don't know, maybe, possibly, but not consciously. All right. So, and another friend that I met not so long ago, maybe it was 8 years, 9 years, and I met them simultaneously. And just a very big coincidence, actually, now that I talk about it, now that I think about it, because they don't know each other, but they knew each other without me knowing, okay? So one of them had a car breakdown at a gas station, and he was there, and he called me probably for just protection, because he's, I think, as we all are, struggling with big karma, with deep karma, and you gotta you gotta have some protection sometimes when you deal with the heavier stuff, that plagues your soul. And look at my puffy face, I feel like a sinner still, a fucking sinner, with all the stuff that I put into my body. um yeah. But it's all just edible, okay? So I met them, and he had a car break. And the other guy that I spent time in my youth, he was working at the gas station, and this felt like meeting. So I didn't see him for, I don't know, 10 years maybe, and there are these people that you share a deep connection with, and if you're, let's just say, if you've had enough healing, you can vibe with these people regardless of how many years pass between you, okay? On the same vibe that you've always been vibing with, okay? And he was so surprised. He honestly just asked me, dude, how the fuck do you recognize me? How the fuck, do you see me as I was back then? But because I think the other guy told me that he had a very heavy partying phase behind him, and yeah, whatever he did, sin, And I just told him, dude, you're a unique character. If we think about life as a role play similar to playing a computer game, like Diablo, World of Warcraft, whatever you might think of. And I just told him, you're a unique character. So if I think about this now in my mind, I have this, golden letters. If I move my cursor over over his, you know, if I move my cursor over him, and it's written there in the font of Diablo 1, unique character. Okay. And I also told him, dude, we are fucking surrounded by NPCs. You know, the NPCs are taking over. Um, yeah, but also I have a lot of NPC parts myself too. I feel honestly, dude, I feel like the dumbest motherfucker alive sometimes. I know they know that I'm dumb, but sometimes I just play dumb. Honestly, I don't. You know, I stopped caring about feeling dumb or not. You know, being perceived as dumb or being perceived as the dummy or the dep or someone that's just not, that's just I stopped caring about it, and it helped me. And I'm still struggling to confront a lot of parts about myself, right? But a very deep need that I have is just practicing self-perception, perception of my soul, or what is it, because we are all one, are we? Well, didn't have I had one Satori. uh, this was also with the friend that I mentioned, that whose car broke down. Wasn't actually his car. We were in Mallorca in Spain, and we just, this was 2016, end of 2016. Still, things were, you know, those were the good old days, right? And we just spent some time in a mansion of a friend of his, and we just meditated, ate vegan. The classic hippie. Well, also new age was in there, and I had a Satori, and I just, I was just sitting there saying, "Hey, that's not me. That's actually not me." And I really felt it, but it vanished, and man, I had struggles with my ego. You don't want to know, about, well, let's just say it, that sins that I committed. Or is my sin just beating myself up over my supposed sins? That's something I'm struggling with too, because I'm struggling with irresolution, martyrdom, being the hanged man, if you will. Oh, you don't want to know how how confused I feel about my experience, and about how people relate to me when I move into the physical dimension. All right, I think I might be done. So I want to talk about numerology in my next one. Numerology. I'm just a nerd, Honestly, I'm not a hero. Don't feel like a hero. I feel more of like a nerd, just computing, and just very analytical, and ah, yeah.